Inside the stories that affect you. This is Inside KELOLAND.
Good evening and thanks for having us in. It's an investigation that hit close to home for a lot of people. DNA testing sites like Ancestry.com and 23andMe have been growing in popularity. They've connected people to long-lost relatives and they've created many happy endings. But that's not always the case. Earlier this year in a KELOLAND News investigation, Angela Kennecke showed us how new DNA tests are sometimes revealing old family secrets. Tonight we have an update on that investigation. That's not all. We'll take you out into southeastern KELOLAND farm fields where floodwaters are being replaced with weeds. Some farmers are making significant investments in hopes of protecting their fields in the future. Tonight we are also sharing two inspiring stories about the Children's Miracle Network. Tonight we are taking a closer look at how the organization is making a difference for families in KELOLAND. We start this week's Inside KELOLAND with an update on that KELOLAND News investigation. In April, Angela Kennecke's investigation into the tale of two possible fathers brought you the story of B.J. Olsen's lifelong quest to discover his paternity.
You don't really realize how many times you get asked who your father is until you don't have one. So whether you're at school with your friends, whether you're at the doctor's office, whether you're filling out legal documents or court, everybody wants to know who your father is, and so do I.
So Olsen set out to determine with DNA evidence which of the two men was his father. Both Jacobson and Davidson are now deceased, but Olsen still wanted to know his roots.
There was always this half of me that was missing.
Our investigation brought into question a 1997 blood test that new DNA evidence refutes. Even though Olsen believes the accuracy of today's testing, the family of his biological father rejected him. At least all but one member who had something eerily similar happen to her. Angela picks up the story from there in this KELOLAND Investigates update.
Instantly, I felt a connection.
I don't know. I just really like the guy.
Joanna Salmon may be B.J. Olsen's aunt, but this is only one of a handful of times that they've been together since finding each other last spring.
And we just sat and we chatted for a couple of hours, and it was just so interesting how our stories are very similar, yet
Salmon
different.
didn't find out until she was 37 that the woman she believed was her sister was actually her mother. She also discovered her biological father was Harold Jacobson.
I guess it was the betrayal. All my whole family knew except me. And I think that hurt more than anything, that everybody knew but me.
DNA tests linked Salmon to B.J. Olsen. According to Ancestry.com, she is Olsen's aunt on his father's side. Olsen has spent nearly 40 years not knowing his paternity.
I figured out who my dad was, but I haven't figured out who my dad was.
Since our investigation, the woman who Olsen believes is his half-sister dropped her lawsuit against him. She had filed it for invasion of privacy after Olsen contacted her with the news that he believed they shared a father.
Do you think you'll ever have a relationship with the woman who you believe is your half-sister?
You know, the way it looks, probably not.
Olsen and Salmon share not only a bond of blood, but also being outsiders to a family they never knew.
Nobody realizes how hard that is to be rejected by people that should love you. You know, that is really very, very hard. And then your whole life is turned upside down.
Finding each other is helping them both heal.
I believe all things happen for a reason, and
Yeah.
you know, maybe this is the time in my life when I needed you the most.
You just made me feel good.
Oh. Yes.
Olsen's story will soon be featured nationally on an upcoming episode of Investigates TV on lab errors and paternity testing. He also wants to write a book about his experience, and he's working with lawmakers in South Dakota to remove the statute of limitations when it comes to paternity so his birth certificate can include the name of his biological father.
If you have a story you'd like us to investigate, go to our Investigates page on KELOLAND.com and fill out the form on the right side of your screen. When we come back, we have some inspiring stories to share with you. We're turning our attention to the Children's Miracle Network. And later, rather than crops, you may notice construction crews in some South Dakota farm fields. We'll be right back. A lot of us like to play golf, but probably don't enjoy it as much as the man you're about to meet. Ian Rinken is an avid golfer, and he's good. He played it in college, but as you're about to see, he's been using his golf skills in a much different way.
You would never know by looking at him right now, but Ian Rinken is not only a golfer, he's a fighter.
I've been in remission since I was 7 years old, so it's been 17 years now.
Rinken was diagnosed with leukemia when he was just 3 years old. He underwent chemotherapy treatments for over 3 years.
During that time, I mean, it was pretty rough on my family and I. I had older siblings that supported me, a rock-solid mom and dad that supported me, and they just held it together.
But make no mistake about it, it wasn't easy. Rinken says he got very weak at times and wasn't able to do some of the same things other kids his age were doing, like golf. For a few years, Rinken was doing incredible things on the golf course. For others, each year he would host a golf tournament to raise money for his 3 favorite charities: Cure Kids Cancer, South Dakota Make-A-Wish, and Camp Bring It On. It's called Rinken Rounds Against Cancer.
It's been a really good way to reach kids who have been through what I've been through.
His wife Sadie got a chance to participate in the golf tournament before they were married. In fact, they were just dating.
That was kind of fun. He kind of found out how horrible of a golfer I am. So I was like, I should definitely just ride in the cart from now on, and that's what I do now.
Sadie, who never got a chance to see Ian fight cancer, says watching her husband golf now is heartwarming.
It's been an eye-opener. I think there's a lot of times where people don't realize the effects that can happen after people go through chemo. And I can remember about like 9 months into our marriage was when Ian kind of opened up to me about like certain side effects that were continuing to happen to him and stuff like that. And that was just really eye-opening because I always figured the side effects only happened while you were getting chemo.
In the past few years, Sadie has learned a lot about Ian. Watching him host his golf tournament to help other kids fighting cancer means so much to her.
It was part of one of the reasons that like I just absolutely fell in love with him, because I was like, oh, his heart is so big and he just loves these kids so much and just wants to help out in any way he can.
Not everyone is as good of a golfer as Ian, but everyone can make a difference by giving back.
Ian has a message to any child fighting cancer right now, and that is, know you have a lot of support and a lot of people who are on your side who will help you fight too. Ian isn't the only hero we've met through the Children's Miracle Network. 4-year-old Avery Hill is a champion who is making a difference and showing other families how to come in first place no matter how they're able to run the race. Here's a look at her role with the Children's Miracle Network.
1, 2, 3.
Even though her parents are always there to give Avery Hill a push in the right direction, don't be fooled.
She likes to do things on her own. Like if you try and help her with something that she knows how to do, she's going to tell you no.
The little girl is kind of a big deal.
Avery thinks she's a pretty big superstar. She likes being, seen out in public and, sharing, who she is and what she loves to do.
So I decided to ask Avery about her favorite hobbies, to get to know her. To prove to you that stars are just like us.
Drawing, making stuff out of Play-Doh. That's the most fun thing people like to do.
If you're wondering why Avery is a local celebrity, it's because she's a Children's Miracle Network champion. That means she's an ambassador for CMN and is an advocate for the cause.
She's always open to kind of sharing her story, and it's fun to see her kind of really embrace that part of this journey.
As wonderful as they were, Avery's journey didn't begin with her first steps. A long road lied ahead for the family when Avery was born 11 weeks premature and had 2 brain bleeds. In all, Avery spent more than 2 months in the Sanford NICU. When we met her last year, her mom told us about the uncertainty the family faced.
You feel so in control when they're inside, and you feel like you can kind of take care of them, and then they come out and you have to allow this other team of people to kind of do all the work.
A year later, doctors diagnosed Avery with cerebral palsy.
Good job, Avery.
Fast forward to now, and Avery's mom says nothing slows down her little girl.
I try and instill in Avery the fact that, she may look a little bit different, she may move a little bit differently than other kids, but that she's still just a kid. She's like everybody else.
The Hills are glad to have the chance to get to know people and use the CMN platform to spread awareness about cerebral palsy. One of the goals is to show other families, thanks to CMN's support, they're not alone in their journeys.
What it means to, hang out with a kid that maybe doesn't have the same abilities that you do, and just being kind and just saying hello and getting to know them and asking the questions that you want to ask.
I like to play in the park.
You like playing in the park? What's your favorite thing in the park?
The slides and swings.
CMN champions like Avery are important because knowing them and their stories may help push us all in the right direction.
No matter what she can or cannot do, it doesn't make her any less of a kid than anybody else, and just knowing the things that she can do are so much more important than the things that she can't.
Ian and Avery are just two examples of the many children who the Children's Miracle Network has helped. This past week, KELOLAND News presented a half-hour special dedicated to all of those children. It's filled with inspiring stories. And you can watch it in its entirety on KELOLAND.com. And while you're there, you can also make a donation and help make miracles happen. From medical equipment to toys and transportation, you might be surprised to hear just how many ways the Children's Miracle Network is helping local families. We will continue our conversation when Inside KELOLAND continues. Hey, welcome back. Here at KELOLAND Television, we have been partnering with the Children's Miracle Network for decades. During that time, the organization has had an unbelievable impact, and we are now joined by Megan Chose with the Children's Miracle Network. Thanks for being on with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, we just met Ian and Avery, two really remarkable people. How awesome is it to get to see these kids thrive and grow into adults like Ian has?
Yeah, I think we just have the best job. We get to see these kiddos when they're born and go through these diagnoses, and they're just the biggest fighters that I've ever met. And I think it's just incredible to watch where they're able to go with funds that are donated to Children's Miracle Network.
Yeah, we just had our special on, and hopefully a lot of people donated. And in most cases, when people donate to something, they might click the mouse or, make a phone call, and then they don't know what happens to their dollars. But not in this case. So how does their money go and help these kids?
Yeah, so there are three big buckets that funds to Children's Miracle Network goes to. The first is specialized equipment. Equipment such as the giraffe omnibed that kiddos might be in the NICU. The second is programs and services similar to Child Life or our camp programs. And then the last is things that aren't covered by insurance, so meals, mileage, things like that.
Okay. Yeah, so we can break that down even further. So, I mean, the first thing you covered, just like the medical technology, that's such an important piece of this puzzle. How valuable is that to have it right here in this region?
It's a huge piece. I think that's the biggest thing that our families talk about. We're able to have the care so close to home, so we're not driving hours away to get the care. They're able to have it right here in our backyard, things that are state-of-the-art that they might not have elsewhere.
And is that an important piece, too? Because, when families have to think about driving hours and hours away and maybe they have other kids and other responsibilities, that causes a lot of stress.
Absolutely.
So is it helpful? Does it ease that stress to be so close?
Definitely, yeah. I think that's one of the biggest things that we hear from when we chat with our miracle families is that they're able to just have that care close to home. People are able to visit them. They're able to run back and forth to home, things like that just take it out of their mind.
And you mentioned the camps, and we've interviewed a lot of the kids who have gone to the camps and, have had a really nice time there. Why are those things important?
I think they're just a huge way for kids to get away for a week and just be a kid when they might be thinking about going through their cancer diagnosis. Maybe they're having chemo treatment while they're at camp, which I think is a huge thing that they can just be a kid for a week and not think about anything else.
And that's a good point because so often when we do these stories, we talk about how these kids are heroes and they're so strong and so brave. But like you said, they're still just children.
Yeah.
And we don't want them to miss out on any of those wonderful parts of life.
Yeah, they just need to be kids. And if we can make that happen, that's definitely why we're here.
Yeah. And how have things been going this year? We just wrapped up our special. We had Miracle Treat Day. How is this year going?
It's been fantastic, and I think the KELOLAND listening area has just been a huge supporter of what's been going on this summer. Everybody went out to get their blizzards for Miracle Treat Day. We've already seen some huge numbers come in from the KELOLAND special, so I think it's just been a great thing to wrap up our summer.
Yeah, and can you believe, we've had this partnership, like we said, for decades, and, some of my coworkers, Angela and Don and Perry, remember talking to some of these adults when they were kids. How valuable has it been that, not only us, but other entities work together to make all of these things happen?
Yeah, Angela and I were just talking about this yesterday when we were chatting about the special. It's just so huge that so many people are rallying around these kiddos because they are our community, they're our future, and we just want to give them the best future that we can.
Yeah, and what would you hope to see in the future? Because I would imagine the giving never ceases to be needed.
Yeah, I know. I wish that I could say my job would be done at some point, but I think we're just lucky to be able to give back to these kiddos in any way that we possibly can. So,
what has been one of your most favorite stories or experiences working in this this division?
That's a great question. I think one of my favorites just has been being able to see kiddos like Ian or Emma or even Olivia McElravy that were featured in this Kelo special, that they were the first baby born in the Sanford Bucklehead NICU. They were the first baby born with cancer at Sanford, Sioux Valley at the time. And then now we're seeing them get married or graduate high school or go on to college. And I think that's been the most rewarding part of my job.
Yeah, and that's a good point too, because they are now telling their stories and they are giving back and helping the next generation of kids.
Yeah.
Is that a really powerful thing to have?
For sure. Yeah, you definitely don't see it every day, but I think in the Children's Miracle Network world, we have kids like these that are featured in the special, but then we also have a ton of college students at Augustana, SDSU, and at USD that are raising money through dance marathons, which the normal college kid is not thinking about raising money, but these kiddos that are in dance marathons at our surrounding colleges are giving back in ways that make sense for them.
Yeah, and remember, you can still see our special on KELOLAND.com, and you can still help out. Before we go, most important question, what kind of blizzard did you get on Miracle Treat Day?
Definitely the summer s'mores.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, what about you?
Oh, I had a peanut butter cup one, but I love the s'mores.
Always a good choice.
All right, thanks for being on with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, it's time for a quick break. Still ahead, we're looking at what's becoming a local trend in farming. We'll show you how farmers are preparing for future floods when we come back. A wet spring and summer are devastating farmers south of Sioux Falls. In the Parker and Hurley area, there's been so much moisture, fields that have produced for decades are now unable to yield a crop. As Matt Olsen shows you, now that has farmers putting down pipe and praying for a brighter future.
Cutting through the earth on farmland that sits in between Parker and Hurley. It's not how farmer Alan Berthelsen was hoping to spend his summer, and it has him feeling down in the dirt.
Like a dang poor farmer. That's just what it amounts to. It just makes you feel like a poor farmer. It upsets me. It's hard to live through all this and everything without no crop and everything. It's just hard to do.
These 450 acres have been in Berthelsen's family since 1928. From his grandfather down to his grandson, he says every family member has seen some sort of crop succeed here every year.
I'm 65 years old. I've been here all my life. I can remember the 93s and the 80s and all that. We always got something planted.
This year, though, nothing. Even the cover crop was washed away by a downpour 2 weeks ago. He's not alone, and like many others, he's doing something about it.
It's all about doing the best that they can with the land that they have, and that's what's really highlighted a lot of what we do. Instead of investing in a new parcel of land, they just invest in the one that they already own or operate and get it up to what they call, maximum productivity.
Randy Nemiga owns THA Demolition and Excavation. They specialize in drain tiling, and the company has been more popular than ever this year.
We are definitely filled up all the way till Christmas, until freeze up.
Normally, they'd be done tiling by Memorial Day and pick back up in the fall following the growing season.
It removes excess subsurface water from the soil, and I highlight the word excess. It leaves the moisture that can still be there to be utilized by the crop.
This summer, Namiga says business has tripled.
We've actually added a machine, a second tile plow, to accommodate that need and future needs.
25,000 feet of pipe is going 3 to 4 feet in the ground here on this piece of land in the Parker area. Normally they would take about 3 days to install, but because of all the rain we've had, it's taken roughly 2 weeks.
There's perforations in it, and then the water will work towards it, and it'll help maintain your water level in the ground.
Justin Gray works at Prinsco. The company manufactures the pipe you see here. Gray says when the tiling is done properly, it can make a big difference. This is a tiled field to the south of Berthelsen's farm.
And if you go look at some fields that have been tiled in the past now, they're really thriving. They're really looking really nice. And the ones that aren't tiled, you know, this is kind of what we're running into. A lot of prevent plant, a lot of crops that are drowning out that just don't look very healthy right now.
I hate seeing weeds growing where I love to farm. I'm a born farmer. I started when I was 12 years old helping my dad and stuff like that. We've been farming all of our lives, so. And my boy is no different. He been out here helping me milk cows and farming and everything since he was about 10.
Berthelsen says his family will be fine despite the struggles. This should have been a field flush with corn this year that was already sold.
What do? Get ready for next year. That's the farmer's life. Next year. We always go next year.
In the meantime, he'll make the most of this season by upgrading this area's drainage.
So there's history here. That's why I want to keep everything, try to make it better for the future generations, what it amounts to.
With Eye on KELOLAND, I'm Matt Holst.
I do like his enthusiasm. Berthelsen says the field being tiled actually sits pretty high. Remarkably, he says this past April it was covered with 2.5 inches of water. Finally, tonight we have a story that is guaranteed to make you smile. It's fair season in KELOLAND, and one of the best parts is that the carnival rides, of course, but not everyone gets a chance to enjoy them. KELOLAND's Kelly Volk and another familiar face show us how the Turner County Fair is changing that.
The familiar sounds and the flashy lights can only mean one thing. It's fair time. And 4-year-old Avery Hill is taking in all of it.
Oh, she gets so excited. She was you excited?
But going for a spin on one of these carnival rides isn't always as easy as it may seem.
She can't really ride on her own, and she can't really wait in line a long time.
Jared Hill's daughter is living with cerebral palsy. Today, she and people of all ages with special needs got to go on the rides for free for 1 hour.
What is your favorite ride?
Oh, Terror World.
It's Tilt-A-Whirl.
Oh, yeah, she thinks.
The event has been going on at the Turner County Fair for years, and it continues to grow.
As a classroom teacher, I had seen a lot of children and heard them talk about the fair, but they never were able to go on the rides because they were too fast and the lines were too long.
But during the hour of free rides, the Midway moves at a more comfortable pace.
So let them have a great day, just like we do.
Be able to just basically have it to yourself with a bunch of other kids with the same issues is really awesome to be able to do it.
Because when fair time rolls around each summer, everyone should get a chance to enjoy it. In Parker, Kelly Volk, KELOLAND News.
You can find out more about today's topics online at KELOLAND.com. Just click on the Inside KELOLAND section. Join us every Sunday following the 10 o'clock news right here on KELO TV. Hey, that's all the time we have for today. Be sure to join us again next week for more on what's going on inside KELOLAND.